Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to this channel. My name is Carla, your new disabilities advocate, educator, and influencer. My goal is to normalize disability in individuals living life. Basically, disabled people living normal lives. And the first step to that is to have open and honest discussions about people with disabilities and life, kind of linking those two together. So, today's topic is responding to the question, why are you physically disabled? For example, the questions like, why are you in a wheelchair? Why do you use a cane, walker, crutch, or have an amputation? If any of these questions have ever been posed to you or a loved one, you know what I'm talking about. And I just would like to say this video is geared for non-medical settings, like on the street, running errands, in school, at work, and normally by strangers or distant acquaintances. All right, so if that sounds good to you, keep watching, and thank you. And believe it or not, these still questions are blatantly asked in today's society. But that definitely wasn't always the case. That wasn't always normal. So now we're going to do a little history deep dive, and I'm going to have to read my screen, so my eyes are definitely going to be going to my right, probably your left. Focus on the camera, but definitely going back and forth to my screen because I'm going to have to read. But I'm going to read as animated as I can. All right. Okay, let's get into this history deep dive. There was no Latin word for disabled, so the Roman used the word monstrum, which means, or in their culture meant, mythical monsters or mythical creatures. Yes. In the Middle Ages, institutions developed more to hide the disabled than to treat, and conditions were less than humane. Next century, the 1800s, people lived in extreme poverty often, including those with physical and mental disabilities. And they were often put into poorhouses or what's called asylum houses in the 1800s. Yeah, that was a thing. Moving on, the late 19th century and the early 20th century, a number of cities passed ugly laws. Yes, ugly laws. And those laws made it illegal for any person diseased, maimed, mutilated, or disfigured in any way to show themselves in public. The last city to repeal the ugly laws was Chicago in 1974. Yeah. Moving on. In the 1930s, Hitler and the so-called master race was popularized in that time. Those with physical deformities were subject to brutal experimentations and used as human guinea pigs. There's no record of how many people were put to death in general, but people with disabilities were definitely included and put to death in the concentration camps. I promise we're gonna get a little bit more peppy. I promise. Bear with me a little bit further, please. Please just bear with me. We're almost done. We're almost out of the dark ages. 1961. The American National Standard Institute became the basis for architectural codes of accessibility. That's moving on up. 1975, the passage of Education for All Handicapped Children Act. This allowed disabled children to be integrated into the public school environment. 1990, the American with Disabilities Act was passed into law. So that's the end of the history dive. I hope you're still with me. And now, moving on to the point of the video. More people with disabilities are now able to enjoy being outside, in public, living life, and doing quintessential ordinary things, which were previously denied to them. So I suppose that this visibility of the disabled have piqued many people's interest and curiosity. Hence the questions and comments like, why do you use this mobility aid, or why are you physically different? So now, here are some responses to said question. Number one, you can respond with any of the following. Number one, why are you asking? And the importance of asking this question is to kind of see where the conversation is gonna be going, and to gauge if you're comfortable with where this conversation is gonna be going. Number two, here's my social media information, and you can provide this verbally, electronically, or physically. Let's talk about physical, giving this information physically. Yes, I just said that. Let's talk about what that means. I'm giving the physical example, meaning like a business card. Yeah, a business card. You would think, why? But a business card, you can have your information on it, like your name, social media handle, or whatever information you would like to give to the public. Because believe it or not, like it or not, you are kind of in the public eye being physically different. So in providing your social media information or any information you'd like to give, then you're giving that education on your terms and not necessarily having to respond to that question outright. In particular, if you have posts or you've written out a detailed blog or any Facebook page or Twitter or tweet or anything like that, if you've already done that and made that information public, then again, giving your social media information is actually a good way to get more people to know what you're willing to say, what you're agreeing to be public knowledge. Okay. And there are a few websites that will allow you to create business cards for free or at a very reduced cost. All right. Tip number 3, you can respond with, I'm a member of whatever community with a website, blank.com. May I share some information about this organization and ways that you can be involved? And I love that response because not only does it answers the question in a way that is potentially that you can be comfortable with, but it also invites whomever is asking to like a call to action or any ways that this person can be involved. So that's one of my favorite answers to that question. And also you can, again, going back to the previous suggestion, that information can be on a business card or a card with your information on it. You can give a website of your favorite organization or group that you belong to that relates to your disability. Moving on, number 4, you can respond to that question with, well, what's your real question? Or is there a follow-up question to that question of my physical disability? Are you asking about how I do daily activities, my physical fitness level, my romantic life? Is this deadly? And this is important to kind of gauge again if there's an underlying question, because oftentimes those that are not medically trained really don't know how to properly or politely respond to a give don't know how to properly respond to medical information. So by trying to sort of gauge or sort of dig out if there's another question behind that first question, then again you can kind of gauge what the question is and what you're willing to answer. Number 5, you can respond with, I'm just not ready to go into that kind of detail yet. And if need be, acknowledge that answering that question could be potentially triggering to the viewer watching this that may be wanting to ask that question. Reliving some of those memories or the reason why a person is physically disabled may not have been a very good experience or an experience that felt good or was it could be potentially tragic or painful. So bringing up those memories could really be, like I mentioned, triggering, hurtful, or just take that person to a not good place. So no offense, but it I think that's a very valid response. Moving on to another response to said question. It's none of your business. And this response establishes those verbal boundaries. In this day and age, with social media and information constantly coming at someone, it's really easy to kind of get those blurred lines in terms of boundaries and what is someone's business. People often put their whole lives out there for any and everyone. It's kind of part of this Gen Z generation, and that's fine. But I think we need to get back to establishing those boundaries on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Number 7, you can always use humor and an outrageous story to answer that question. Key tip: adding Michael Jackson or Oprah to any story will sensationalize it, regardless of the realism. For example, you can say something like this: believe it or not, I was skydiving with a Michael Jackson impersonator. My parachute didn't work, and this is how I got where I am. Wow, right? Michael Jackson impersonator. Awesome. That'll definitely, again, and that shows off your humorous side and can kind of lighten the mood. We're almost done. Last tip, and this is really for minors. They say children and drunks tell the truth all the time, or will be brutal in their questions, brutally honest. So I would definitely say to kids or minors to explain what's, if you're comfortable, explain as best you can at an age appropriate level of understanding. And please remember to use non negative terms to describe your body. For example, just you could say something like, my body is different, or just not the same as most people that you see. Again, that's trying to avoid those negative words, adjectives, and just thoughts about being differently abled. All right, so there you have it. Those are 8 ways to respond on really why you are who you are. Not all inclusive, but a beautiful beginning. And keep in mind, all 8 of them may not be needed at one time, but you definitely have them if you need them. And to my viewer who's posed these questions before or wondering what to ask instead, you may be, in case you're just a curious person or a chatty person, that is totally fine. And that's going to be the topic of an upcoming video. So stay tuned. This channel is a safe space and should never be used to blame, bully, or belittle anyone. If you found this video helpful or this information useful to you or your loved one, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And definitely subscribe so you can stay on top of new videos and even a countdown to new videos. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carla saying Carpe Diem. I appreciate your time. Goodbye.